Okay, so here we can find or we can see very good information about what approach, method, and techniques are. Let's say, and strategies. So here, technique is a procedure or skill for completing a specific task. Okay, so for example, the task is to understand for example, what the audio file says. What is the technique? Okay, so the technique is going to be like listening, let's say 3 times, and then taking notes about that, and then talking, and that's it. That's going to be a specific task. The method is a way something is done, perhaps used for routine tasks. For example, I'm going to use TBL, task-based learning, right? That's going to be a method for you to understand, let's say, how people acquire language based on Krashen's theory, right? So we're going to go over there. So that is going to be just like understanding the whole thing, the whole part. Ricardo, but why wouldn't the method be listening for understanding something? Of course, the method, the method right here could be something like listening for understanding something. Yes, but we're going to create more activities, right? So the technique is for only one single aspect. But you said that listening is the technique, isn't it? No, I'm not saying listening is the technique. I'm giving an example about using a listen activity as a technique. I'm not saying that listening is just a technique, right? Okay. Now, what I was saying, I'm going to start from the scratch. Let's say technique could be what you're going to use in order to achieve only one specific objective. It could be listening, reading, speaking, reading, grammar, whatever. But the fact right here is there's going to be just only one objective. What is the objective? For example, to understand what is to understand the material, and then to answer some questions. That's it. So that could be a technique, but it's going to be just for only one simple thing. Now, the method is going to give more ideas, or is going to provide more activities for us to include in in one objective. Example, the technique could be the activity. No, the technique is something else. The activity is something different. One activity is, for example, listen to the what? Listen to the no, the activity. Got it. You're going to watch the following video and then you're going to answer the questions. That's it. That's an activity. But in the technique, you're going to say, okay, the step-by-step process in order to consolidate what is going to be done, right? Now, the method, listening is a skill. It's not a method, right? Now, the method is going to be just the way in which we're going to learn, right? By through activities. In this case, let's say, what is going to be the method for this class? Number one, to have an interaction. Number two, to provide you elements in order for you to read. Number three, to have the interaction is already said. Number four, to understand the difference between method, technique, and approach. Number four, to understand the methods implemented or used in order to learn a foreign language, right? So it's going to be bigger. While a technique is going to be focused on only one aspect, the technique is a specific type of exercise and activity. Is going to be a specific type of exercise. No, it's going to be a specific way for you to do for you to complete one objective, right? Every class contains an objective, right? but that's going to be the technique. Example, you're going to set the activity. Now, the activity is going to be like, once again, writing an essay. That's it. And I'm going to give you just the documents for you to read about that. But what is going to be the technique for you to understand that? Oh, that I'm going to provide you documents. I'm going to create an explanation. I'm going to give you some videos in order to understand that. But that's going to be just for understanding how to write the essay I want you to write for this activity. Boom, that's the technique. But the method is going to imply more things to do. Now, what? A method in order to understand, sorry. Let's say we're going to implement a method for you to start writing an essay. So I need to go back in order to see some little theories related to the writing production, right? Number one, objective number one. Number two, to choose the best words or the diction for this types of essay. Number one. Number two, could you do a brief graphic when you explain that? Brief graphic? Okay, I'm not getting it. Could you do a brief graphic? Oh, how can I say that? A word art. A word art? Well, yes, like a framework, and I'm going to do it, but after the class, okay? But now, no. After the class, I'll do it. Okay, because I have just enough time for me to explain all the things that I have to do for today. Okay. Okay. Method. As you said, right, as you see right here, is a way something is done, perhaps just for routine tasks. As I was saying before, task-based learning is going to give you just the pre-task, the during task, and the post-task. But you need to link them together, right? Let's say technique, pre-task, one technique. During task, second technique. And the third one is going to be the post-task. Each one is going to require a specific technique for you to accomplish a specific objective. But the sequence between the first activity to the second activity and the third activity is going to create the method, right? So it's going to have a step-by-step process in order to achieve various objectives that are going to be related to only one single goal, right? So that is going to be that method. It's going to be bigger, okay? The strategy part is going to be just the way in which you're going to plan everything, right? So, for example, in the method, it is going to say something like, okay, we're going to teach, no, this class is going to be just based on how to improve your conversational skills. So we're going to look for some theories related to the conversation for you to implement that inside the method, right? And that's it. And then you're going to start working on that. And finally, the approach is doing something in a certain way, okay? But this is going to require more items to be understood. For example, more theories, not only one theory, but it's going to be just plenty of theories. And then we're going to try to understand each individual inside the aspect. Okay. When I'm talking about the aspect, is talking about just like what we want to achieve, and that's it. Well, this is going to be kind of hard, but here, this is the part I wanted to show you. As you see right here, I want to read a little part of this. For example, approaches deal with general philosophies of teaching methods. So right here. the philosophies of teaching, meaning the theory itself is going to be just the approach. Here, methods deal with more practical nuts and bolts. So meaning go straight to the point, putting what you have understood about the approach in practice. And strategies deals with a specific action or strategies and techniques. So what is the specific action? Let's say to make understandable a topic. That is going to be just the technique, the strategy. And then based on what? On the method that is going to tell you which steps you could do in order you can take into account in order for you to fulfill that. But based on what? On the approach that is going to give you the whole theory, and maybe it's not going to be focused in your specific context. It was just created, right? And that's all. Back. Where's my PDF? Ouch. Clicked on something that it wasn't. Technique, understand something. Method, how would you make us understand that something? Yeah, sort of. Okay, let's continue here. Approach, what do you know about the topic? No, the approach is more like what says the theory for you to teach that and for you to learn about that, right? The approach doesn't have anything to do related with the topic. So if I'm going to teach something related to grammar, for example, how to teach the present simple, in the approach, you're not going to find anything about that, but in the method, yes. So the approach is going to be this general. The method is going to be this specific, and the technique is going to be that specific, right? So from the biggest chunk to the smallest one.
Teacher,
Yes. Yeah, make an
can
example.
no teacher can you share the last web page, please?
Yes. I don't know what is that. This one. Ouch. Nope. Nope. Nope.
No,
Mm,
no,
nope. And this
no.
one.
Mm-hmm.
This one. Okay. Past simple.
Thanks.
Ricardo, I think I understand your mistake right now. You're trying to understand something from a topic. No, don't watch it from the topic. The topic is going to be just the minimal issues, the minimal part of that, right? So no, don't take it like that. Let's say the approach is going to give you all the characteristics on how to understand the topic, on how to understand the learning and the teaching procedures, right? Example, how to teach mathematics, how to teach physics, how to teach biology, how to teach languages. Those are going to be the approaches, right? Because they're going to be big, they're going to be huge, right? What would be the process for teaching present simple in this case? That is going to be a technique because you're going to be focused on present simple, only one single thing. But if I say I'm going to teach present simple just because I want to have, no, I want to create a conversation about that, or I want you to write a diary related to present simple facts, that's going to be the method, right? Because you're going to be even broader. But does it have method, technique, and approach? Yeah, that is what I'm telling you right now. Okay, I'm going to start. The activity is, let's say, writing something. No, to learn, not even better. The activity is to write a letter in present simple. That's going to be the activity. Okay. The technique. How to learn? present simple. Oh, let's start with the conjugation. That's a technique. I'm going to teach the conjugation based on the personal pronouns and some verbs. Okay, that's going to be the technique. I'm going to be focused on only one single item. So the technique could be how to teach the conjugation of the verb to be and yeah, in present simple. So that's going to be the technique, what you're going to use in order to achieve that objective, right? What is going to be the method? The method right here is like teaching the present simple for conversational purposes, right? Oh, so that's going to be big because it's not going to be just related on conjugation, right? It's going to be just related to how to use that in a conversation. And then the approach. Okay, the approach says that we're going to teach language for conversational purposes. And that's it. So it's too big. Okay, so let's see, technique, how to learn present simple. Yeah, the conjugation of present simple. Method, teaching the present simple for conversational process. Approach, to teach language for, finally, yes, that's it. You
Teacher,
deserve an applause.
um, teacher, sorry.
Not to worry, not to
Uh,
worry, Ricardo.
uh,
Things happen.
Here
Yeah,
in the web page
yes,
uh, says something very important. I can find them. Methods are the way we teach.
yes,
Approaches explain why we teach that way.
that's it, simple like
It's
that.
like yeah, it's more
So
it's
yes,
easier
so
than
yeah, it's going to be something like I'm going to put it in a quantitative form. I have some materials here. Even better. Ah, give me a second. Okay, oops. Okay, I'm gonna use it the old stuff. Okay, let's say an approach. An approach for what? An approach for writing. Okay, so I need only one approach about writing. Cool. Here, this is your approach. This big, right? Why? Because you're going to find over there a lot of activities and what to expect to be done, what to expect to be learned, and that's it, right? So here we're going to write about professional articles, right? The integration of language arts, teaching students with different abilities, how to write a journal, how to write portfolios, how to write across the curriculum, thinking and writing, like that, cooperative learning, sentence combining and writing process, assessment, evaluation, visual learning, technology, and that's it, right? So those are going to be just the components about that. And that's going to be the approach. It's going to give you a lot of ideas for you what to, let me organize my ideas. Yeah, there's going to be some like a lot of theory on what to do, how to do it, when to do it, right? What to evaluate. And then also, you're going to think of the teacher, the student, and the material, right? So that's going to be just everything. Everything is going to be just the approach. The method is going to be just related to only one process, right? For example, here, I'm going to the cartoon, to the what? To the technique. And here it says like creating satirical comics, right? Okay, so that's activity. How to do it? For only one activity, for only one objective, there's going to be a technique, right? So we're going to create the objective. We're going to see the skills in the way they are going to be developed. And that's all. Methods can be used for all the skills, okay? And that's all. That's it. For example, this one about Vygotsky, thought and language. That is going to be an approach, right? Because it's going to give you lots of ideas on what to expect from all the actors inside the learning process, right? But there are going to be more ideas on what to learn or what to understand about the methods, sorry, the approaches, because there are going to be approaches for learning, right? There are going to be thousands of them. There are going to be, for example, methods on how to teach specific aspects from the subject is going to be taught. It could be a language, it could be maths, it could be chemistry, it could be sports, right? So like that. So approach, how to interact among the classroom. Now the approach is going to be right here, like maybe classroom interaction, right? Even better, classroom interaction is going to have only one objective, one big objective, and that is going to be just related to method, right? And the approach right here is going to be something like a teaching at a contextual way, right? Technique, interacting only in English. Yes, could be. The method, it could be the direct method, it could be like that, okay? And the approach is going to be even more than classroom interaction. And that's it, okay? Like, good. Let's continue with this for me to give you more ideas on what is going to be a method, the components of a method, what is going to be an approach, and that's it. Cool. Now, we have right here, what is a method? As you see right here, all methods include prescriptions for the teacher and the learners. So, like a manual for you to follow, right? That is going to be something else taken from the method. All methods are prepackaged set of specifications of how the teacher should teach and how the learners should learn, derived from a particular theory from the language and a theory from language learning. So that's going to be the method, right? So also we're going to see that those aspects from the approach, right? And here, for the teacher, methods prescribe what materials and activities should be used, how they should be used, and what the role of the teacher should be. So related to the connection between the activities, the materials, and what the teacher is going to say. It's going to be a logical connection about that. Then we have, for learners, methods prescribe what approach to learning the teacher should take and what roles the learner should adopt in the class. Okay, now the approach. So underline each method is a theory on the nature of language and a theory of the nature of language learning, both which comprise the approach. So the approach is going to contain everything, every structure, but the method is going to be like a little manual for you to achieve something. These theories are derived from areas of linguistics, sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, and the source of principles and practices of language teaching. So it's going to be like that. Okay?
So, for example, if you make us describe something, in those cases, we can use something like the approaches EFL teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
But
Absolutely.
we're going to choose the method
Yeah. So for example, the
and the
approach is going
technique
to be related
that
to,
we use.
yes. So for example, the approach is going to be just related to communication. So which is going to be just the approach related to, number one, the theory on language. What is this? Here, the theory, the nature of language. So the theory on nature of language and the theory on nature of language learning. So for example, we're going to mix the theories created by Stephen Krashen, right? So number one, and let's say we're going to use another theory that is going to be constructivism. And from that, we're going to have an approach, right? So let's say that is going to be the, something like that is going to be just related to the action-oriented approach, right? So that is going to be the way in which we're going to work with that. But the way in which we're going to use each aspect for us to teach something particular, right? That is going to be just mostly related to the method, right? It's going to be just the prescription. The big thing with theories and all the things are going to be just the approach. But the manual part for you to how to do it, how to implement it, is going to be just related to the approach, the method, sorry. Okay. Okay. Let's see right here, what is an approach influenced by? So as we see it right here, we're going to see from the approach, the theory of language and the theory of language learning. Number one, we're going to see the structure and the functional viewpoint of the language. So the linguistic part, okay? And then the theory of language learning. So the cognitive process, the psychological issues, like that. Then we're going to see right here, theory of language, focus of teaching. So in the theory of language, as we saw right here, we're going to see the structural and the functional part. We're going to see the linguistics, okay? So for example, what is going to be used right here? Example, the grammar, the phonology, syntax, lexicon, semantics, that's it. But the theory of language learning is going to be just, for example, how we start acquiring and developing our listening part, how we're going to improve our pronunciation. So that's going to be the issue right here, okay? Then components of a method. So we have, inside the method, we have the syllabus. So for example, a course contains a method, right? So in a course, we're going to see that we're going to teach grammar, listening, reading, speaking, and writing, right? Well, we're going to have a method in order to implement right here. So we're going to see maybe some conceptions about the language, the language theory, the theory of nature of language, and the theory of the nature of language learning. So as we see right here, that is going to contain a theory that is put into practice and which choices are made about the content to be taught, the skill to be developed, and the order of content, the evaluation process. That's it, right? Then, the theory of language adopted will affect the organization and selection of language content, right? So, for example, based on Krashen, what is going to be the best way for us to teach grammar? We know that there's going to be a theory called the natural order of language, if I'm not wrong, right? And based on that, we're going to start organizing our syllabus. And then we have different methods have different types of syllabi associated with them. Example, different ways of selecting and organizing content. So not for every activity or not for every item to be accomplished, there's going to be only one activity to do. No, you're going to use a lot of activities. And only one activity is going to be just related to a technique. How to teach past perfect continuous. There's going to be a technique for that. Which one? The one you're going to implement inside the classroom for students to achieve that goal. Only one goal. The method. You need to teach all the things for the first semester about grammar. How you're going to do it. There's going to be a method that you need to follow. Okay, then we have the practice. Okay, and in this part we have types of learning, tasks, and activities. So based on the method and based on the approach, how to do it, how to implement it, which one is going to be the best one to be implemented inside this classroom and inside the level. Then roles of learners in the classroom, roles of the teachers, right? The role of the material. Yes, of course, each material contains a method, right? So for example, a role, sorry. For example, let's say you're going to read this book, The Origin by Dan Brown, by the end of the semester, right? But in here, we need to set the objectives. How to evaluate this, number one. Number two, how many pages per week students are going to read. Number three, what are they going to do with every set of pages read. Number four, what is going to be the kind of words, the lexicon they're going to understand. Number five, how to interact with this book inside the classroom. Number six, how to measure if students have understood the book or not. That is going to be just the role of the material, right? And that's it. And then we have assessment. Same thing like evaluation. Okay. As we see right here, in this chart, the one that maybe Ricardo was asking, the technique is going to be just one single thing to be accomplished. The method is going to be composed by a lot of techniques. And an approach is going to be composed by two or more methods, right? As we see right here, different theories about the nature of language and how languages are learned are the approach. Imply different ways of teaching language, math. And different methods can make use of different kinds of classroom activities or techniques, right? Well, maybe an activity could be a technique, but the technique is going to be something like how to implement only one activity. Okay. Now, let's start with the methods. The first method, I don't know if you have seen this topic before, about how to teach how language was taught all over the history. Something like that, but with your own explanation, because I saw that you get the idea clear and I didn't, but now I understand a bit more. Yeah, they used to be thought translation. They used to be, okay, nice. Okay, yeah, checking from Spanish to English and from French to English, kind of difficult. Okay, nice. Never mind. Let's continue with this. I don't know if you know some of the history related to how the language was taught. Do you know something about that? So, for example, which were the methods that were implemented in order to teach languages all over the world? Vocabulary translated. Okay, that's a kind of yes but no at the same time. Okay, cool. Let's start with this. The first one was the grammar translation method. What is that? So it was just basically trying to understand the language by learning only grammar and translating at the same time. So you learn the grammar from the target language and then you start translating. This was a very traditional method in which, how can I say this? You weren't allowed to interact. You were allowed only, well, students were only allowed to learn by heart, to memorize everything. Okay? So let's say here, for example, traditional way of teaching Latin and Greek. In the 19th century, used to teach French, German, and English. So you memorize and then you were going to learn and then you translate. Pointless, but then typical lessons consisted of presentation of grammar rule, especially written text and demonstrated the rule, list of new words, translation exercises, and grammar exercises. That's all. Yeah, boring. At that time, it worked. But nowadays, we need more interaction. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, it was something like teaching English since the Spanish structure. I mean, we are translating. We change all the pragmatic, all the structure from English. And when we are talking, for example, a sentence we did it in present simple, and then we say the same in Spanish, we're changing the order because wouldn't make sense if we translate it like how is that called? Literally. So it would be impossible to teach something, for example, to teach English in the Spanish structure. It would be pointless.
Yep, it's like that. But at that time, it worked, right?
Yeah.
Give me a sec. Well, let's continue here. That's it. Let's continue. Okay. So here, there was just related, or it was focused on teaching grammar, explaining grammar, right? There was no oral production. There was little attention on listening to texts, right? And the exercises was learning the grammar and translating. That was all. Okay, guys, I needed to reconnect and for me to what to go to the end of the class with this. Okay. So we're going to connect again.